I'm just going to come right out and say, guys, this is the moment we've been waiting for. I don't mean that in the sense that we should somehow relish the suffering of our competitors or that there's some opportunity here we can take advantage of. I'm saying that we built our ecosystem so that the current carnage being experienced by some of our peers would not be inflicted upon us. We never availed ourselves of all the VC money. We didn't play the high leverage degen games. We didn't value total value locked over decentralization. We skipped those things and grew slower because we always knew that this day was coming. Today is the day that some people are paying the delayed price for all those shortcuts, but not Cardano, because we were always playing a much bigger game. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss some more of the aftermath and carnage of the FTX-Alameda chaos, the impact on Solana, possible repercussions with regard to wrapped assets, Bitboy basking in the glow of probably being very right, Charles doing mortal verbal combat finishing moves on that kid from the OC, Elon doing exactly what we expected, and Virtua giving us a beautiful new sneak peek of one aspect of Cardano Island. If your reaction when you saw this image was, nah, bro, that's not a neighborhood destroyed by a tornado, that's just what the inside of my significant other's car looks like, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. A lot has gotten worse in the last 24 hours. Today, the Wall Street Journal brought us this news. SEC and DOJ investigating crypto platform FTX. The Securities and Exchange Commission and Justice Department are investigating cryptocurrency platform FTX. Staff at the two law enforcement agencies were in close contact Wednesday, the person added. And then we get a whole bunch of quotes from Gary Gensler. We will continue to do our job as the cop on the beat. The runway is getting shorter for some of these intermediaries, I have to say. Then they go ahead and quote some guy from a group that advocates for oversight of the financial sector. It's past time that the SEC brought charges against these exchanges for facilitating the trading of unregistered securities. See how that quote just sort of assumes that the cryptocurrencies are unregistered securities, something that Gary Gensler is very happy to do. Even down here, he says, the intermediaries, so many of whom have hundreds of tokens on them, are non-compliant with the securities laws and non-compliant with the time-tested public policies. Of course, when the DOJ and the SEC jointly announce they're investigating any kind of entity, it has repercussions. So, of course, pretty soon we also saw this from Binance. As a result of corporate due diligence, as well as the latest news reports regarding mishandled customer funds and alleged U.S. agency investigations, we've decided that we will not pursue the potential acquisition of FTX. You'll remember yesterday we talked about how this was just a non-binding LOI with a big due diligence clause. And this morning, we were already seeing rumors that Binance was walking away from the deal just because they saw the financials and realized what a big hole there was in the FTX financials. But it looks like the DOJ and the SEC investigating was just kind of a bonus reason for not going forward with anything in that non-binding LOI. Of course, all of that combined news kicked off a cascade of other events, including this letter from Sequoia Capital to its limited partners. We are reaching out to share an update on our investment in FTX. Sounds innocent enough. It's just an update. No big deal, guys. In recent days, a liquidity crunch has created solvency risk for FTX. The full nature and extent of this risk is not known at this time. Based on our current understanding, we are marking our investment down to $0. And it looks like they had investments by one fund of $150 million and another fund of $63.5 million. So those are pretty significant losses. And as you probably know, there seem to have been strong links between FTX, Alameda, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Solana. Duo9, which is an account that originally made some accusations about the solvency of FTX and Alameda, had this to say. anything on the Alameda balance sheet may end up like this. Hashtag Solana. They had 1 billion worth of Solana on their balance sheet, and now it's worth 500 million. Tomorrow, it may be worth even less. Stay away from anything touched by FTX or Alameda. And they post this chart with a gigantic Solana red candle. They're backing that up with this 18 million Solana about to hit the market within 24 hours. I don't even know what the token's actually called. Sol, or is it called Solana? I don't even know. 18 million Sol about to hit the market within 24 hours. And they show this amount of 18,281,000 Sol being deactivated from staking. This will represent a second wave of selling. The lesson from Taro was to never lock your coins. You may regret it. And then that was updated with this that showed an even bigger amount, 47 million Sol being deactivated from staking, with the implication being that it's being deactivated from staking, of course, so that it can be liquidated. So what does all this have to do with Cardano? Well, I remember during certain parts of the last bull market when Solana was doing quite well, I was doing videos comparing things like the ownership of the token supply of Solana to Cardano. And the picture we could see just by looking at pie charts, kind of showing the tokenomics of the two blockchains, was that in Cardano, you have this very decentralized token ownership. The insiders only holding, what is it, like 17% of the tokens, and the rest of it is all just, public ownership of the blockchain. And then you look at the Solana token supply ownership, and you have this incredible amount being owned by insiders and investors. And the reason why that was such a red flag in my mind is because with these VC owned blockchains, you tend to run into these kinds of problems. If some centralized actor, like FTX in this case, has some kind of a big problem, some kind of a liquidity crunch like this, an insolvency incident, whatever euphemism you want to use to describe it, when some big centralized actor holding a bunch of your coins has this kind of problem, they end up having to liquidate the coins. And it causes this detrimental effect on the whole ecosystem. The ecosystem gets tanked because some centralized actor gets tanked. I mean, this is really the whole premise of decentralization. You want decentralization and not centralization so that the centralized actor can't screw things up. And we see problems with VC ownership of chains, even when the VCs don't tank, even when the centralized actors don't tank. Sometimes just the VCs selling off the tokens to turn their quick buck, sometimes that alone is enough to damage the ecosystem, or at least to serious delay good days for the ecosystem. But what we've seen is that VC ownership of cryptocurrency blockchains, at least in my mind, doesn't seem to be a good thing. And Solana was very much owned by the insiders and early investors, many of whom were VCs. At the same time as I was trying to point all that out, I was getting messages from people that were like, "Hey, bro, I don't know if you've noticed, but you seem to be pretty negative on Solana. But I don't know if you've seen that they're like mad outperforming Cardano right now. So maybe you should, kind of get on the Solana train," which is kind of expected. I mean, in crypto, we have a lot of people who pretty much only follow and care about price action. And that's the opposite of what we do on this channel. But this is exactly why we look at the actual fundamental characteristics of a blockchain and its token ownership and how it's operated and how it was constructed and the architecture of the blockchain. It's because you can create a blockchain that in the short term might outperform other blockchains, but to get there, you might have sacrificed certain things like decentralization that lead to days like this. Here's a thread that indicates how scarily deep this contagion could go. One of the most challenging and unspoken issues facing the Solana ecosystem are the wrapped solid tokens, namely SOBTC, which is used widely across lending and AMM platforms. The problem? These tokens are issued by FTX or Alameda. No one really knows. These tokens were launched very early in the Solana DeFi cycle to help generate liquidity in the space and supposed to be backed one-to-one by BTC or ETH. But unlike WBTC, which apparently this poster helped start, he says, which I helped to start, there were no formal process, and no one knows if FTX still has the underlying assets. That's pretty problematic because the one thing that it seems FTX does not have enough of are assets. He says this is very problematic because practically all the major DeFi platforms have SOBTC assets as collateral, since it has long been accepted as the de facto BTC in the Solana space. If SOBTC turns out to have no value, then it could worsen the contagion along more dimensions. When I read things like this, I'm just really glad that Cardano did not have some very commonly used up and running Solana to Cardano bridge that could have soaked our ecosystem with these wrapped assets. One guy who doesn't seem sad at all about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX fall from grace is Bitboy. This video surfaced today, and it appears to be Bitboy in maybe like his bathroom in like kind of a bathrobe or something. And my dude, I thought he was wearing makeup around his eyes because he's looking like a raccoon. Like, look at his eyes. I honestly thought he was wearing some kind of makeup, like maybe it was part of a Halloween costume or something. But after watching the video a few times, I think he's just been getting so little sleep because he's been so concerned about this whole situation with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried that I'm not sure, based on the way his eyes look, I'm not sure if he's been getting much sleep. But one thing I can say for sure is that a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that maybe Bitboy was right about everything. You remember we covered on this channel that video where he was so angry at Sam Bankman-Fried. He was like visibly shaking and saying that Sam Bankman-Fried was a devil. And in these like message exchanges they had on Twitter, he kept implying that Sam Bankman-Fried needed to be ready for something that was coming. And it sounded like he kept sort of saying that he had a bunch of information that would be brought to light. So I think a lot of people thought Bitboy was crazy when all that went down. But it looks like, whether the information he had pertains to all this that's happened now or not, it looks like Bitboy was definitely on the right track. Sam Bankman-Fried was not exactly, and FTX and Alameda, they were all not exactly what everybody thought they were when all that was going down. This popped up on Bitboy's profile. He says, I have zero sympathy for SBF and am going to enjoy sending him to prison. I'm sitting on so much hard evidence he has no chance of escaping. People thought he was going to be able to buy his way out of prison. Now the message has changed a little bit. Sam, listen, I know things are hard, but I have a place for you to stay. It comes with one pillow, one blanket that is too short to cover your feet, and 3 hot meals. And he's retweeting a tweet that says, SBF has filed for bankruptcy and personally owes lenders over $650 million. So things are not looking good at all for Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, Alameda, or even Solana. We'll see where all this goes, but nobody can really say that they weren't warned about this. I think a lot of us in Cardano have been making a lot of noise about these VC chains for many, many, many months, pretty loudly. We were constantly talking about why you don't want to be involved with one of these VC controlled chains, why the effects of VCs in crypto aren't necessarily good, and why it's good to be in a blockchain ecosystem like Cardano that made the choice. I mean, it was a conscious choice not to go down that road for exactly these kinds of reasons. Meanwhile, they had Charles over at the Web Summit, which I believe was in Portugal, and they put him on this panel about crypto. And it was a pretty short panel. There wasn't a lot of time, and I don't think they were quite prepared for how good Charles is in this type of environment. They had this moderator over here. They had this person over here who was some kind of a, I don't know what she is, a blogger or a journalist, but she's pretty anti-crypto. Then they had this guy who is Ben McKenzie. You might know him as the kid from the, what is it, sort of a teen drama, The OC. Many of you will be too young to remember that show, but he was a kid in that show. Now he's a middle-aged crypto critic who's written a book, which I'm sure is just about his criticisms of crypto. That's his new career. He's been on Southland and Gotham since the OC, but really what he's into right now is being a critic of crypto. And during the course of the panel, he was very quick to point out he did go to college. He pointed out he does have a bachelor's degree, and he managed to slip in some promotion of his book. But mainly what he had to say was that cryptocurrencies are not currencies at all. They are just an investment in a common enterprise with an expectation of profits solely based on the efforts of others. Yes, he quoted the Howey test, and then he sort of like looked around as if he was so much smarter than everyone else because he's an actor and he has a bachelor's degree. He was obviously so much smarter than everyone else. They wouldn't realize he was just quoting the Howey test. And then he sort of laid it on everyone. That means they're just securities. And then we had the blogger / journalist, whatever she is over here, also obviously a crypto critic. She was very quick to point out that crypto has ruined lives. Yes, if you weren't aware, crypto has ruined lives. Charles, if you're familiar with Charles, you know when he hears things like that, he's just thinking of what kinds of mortal verbal combat finishing moves he's going to do on people that say those kind of things about crypto. And you can tell they're not really, these people don't seem like people who are very used to talking to smart crypto people. Maybe they don't talk to crypto people at all if they're saying those kinds of things and not really contemplating the responses they're going to get. But Charles just kind of proceeded to crush them. Every comment they made like that, it was sort of like, what do I compare this to? It was sort of like vegans talking to meat eaters. I'm not characterizing either side of that debate either way, but that was the amount of conceptual divide between these two sides. So the blogger, whatever, journalist, whatever she is, and Ben McKenzie, very much like crypto is the devil. And Charles is like, espousing all the ideals of crypto and how, yes, you could take crypto and build a security, but you can also make a security out of things like oil and talking about, the great things you can do with crypto. Anyways, Charles just kept going and just crushing these guys with their feeble arguments until the moderator finally had to like break in and say, okay, we're out of time. You guys can continue this debate backstage if you want to. But Ben McKenzie seemed to be very dissatisfied with the lack of respect his status as an actor and a bachelor's degree holder was getting him in front of Charles. You can see it on his face right here. He's like as disgusted with Charles as a vegan would be with a person eating like a 2-pound steak of some type. Just look at his face right here. This is sheer contempt and disgust. But it was actually this right here. This was my favorite moment of the entire panel. I think we should just call it a debate. So Ben McKenzie and the blogger person tried to make the point that lots of people had lost money. Everyone is down. This year, people have lost money. Normal people have lost money. It's unconscionable. And Charles pointed out that he himself had lost $2 billion this year with the bear market in cryptos. At that, Ben McKenzie made this face, which I think was him recognizing that Charles had just counterpointed them at the same time as pointing out that he's much more wealthy than Ben McKenzie, the actor with a bachelor's degree. Also, be aware that your boy Elon is doing exactly what many suspected he would do, and that's move toward turning Twitter into a payments network. This is the FinCEN website. FinCEN stands for Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And when you're going to do things like become a money transmitter, you have to register with FinCEN because they're going to want you to do stuff like KYC, AML, and report suspicious activity, which you're going to report to them in these things called SARs, which are suspicious activity reports. And you probably have to have a whole AML team of AML specialists identifying suspicious activities and reporting it to FinCEN. Those are kind of your requirements. So it looks like Twitter has applied for such a status with FinCEN. It looks like we have receive dates here of November 4th. Looks like a receive date. Looks like an authorization sign date of 1103 and a receive date of 1104. And it looks like it's every single US state and the territories. Finally, Virtua brought us a Cardano Island update. And this is the kind of update I get excited about because it was accompanied with little images of a tropical island and cocktails. This is the kind of metaverse I want to participate in. If we're saying it's a beautiful tropical island and there are cocktails and we're all just chilling there, that sounds good to me. Cardano Island condos are luxurious high-fidelity metaverse spaces where you can chill, hang out, and show off your NFTs. Here's a sneak peek at the interior designs. So this sounds good. You read this and you think to yourself, okay, they're going to show us what the condos look like. This will be great. The part I wasn't prepared for is how good the condos look in this little teaser video. Like, look at this room. That kind of starts looking photorealistic. Like, this starts looking like a very cool, real room where humans would want to hang out. If you look at some of the rest of these, like you can tell these aren't, a million percent, you can tell you're looking at an image that might be in a metaverse, but it looks very realistic. This is the kind of immersive environment where I want to hang out and have our little Friday night sessions where everybody who's a part of the Army of Spies can kind of get together and we can talk about fun crypto things. This makes me think that Virtua is definitely on the right track. If this is how all of Cardano Island looks, I think we're going to end up having a very good time there. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.